Back in 2017, Horizon Zero Dawn shocked gamers with its creative world, incredible presentation, and intricate narrative that left players yearning for more. The Frozen Wilds expansion delivered more, but it wasn't enough, with Horizon Forbidden West going far beyond what was first established in Horizon Zero Dawn. A masterpiece in game design, Horizon Forbidden West exceeds all expectations for a truly phenomenal adventure. Horizon Forbidden West takes place 6 months after the events of the first game, with Aloy attempting to find a backup of the AI program Gaia. A red blight has been rampaging through the land, siphoning life, and Aloy is attempting to track down every lead she can to find the only thing capable of resolving the problem at hand. It isn't long before we discover that Aloy's frenemy, Silence, not only betrayed her, but requires her help for whatever he's planning. With no choice, Aloy heads to the Forbidden West, where a dangerous civil war is brewing, along with peace talks between the East and West on the line. If that wasn't enough, planetary threats are on the horizon that go beyond the Blight. Like Horizon Zero Dawn, expect the game to deliver an intricate narrative full of new lore and unexpected challenges. Unlike other games that give the lore of promising story details only to pull the rug under the player like the first Destiny or a lot of the Assassin's Creed games, Guerrilla Games does the opposite, instead providing small pieces of the puzzle linked to what Aloy is chasing, but keeping the bigger revelations to key moments, with the finale bringing everything together but leaving room for more in the next game or even an expansion if the rumors are true. The story and writing are outstanding, but what's truly remarkable is the conversations. Games from BioWare, Ubisoft, even Horizon Zero Dawn always end up having an issue with stoic character models that just talk to each other in unnatural ways, but that's not present in Horizon Forbidden West. Character models shake their head, look down in frustration or sympathy, or much more. The excellent camera works in combination allows for conversations to play out naturally, setting a new standard for these types of interactions. Games from Rockstar, for example, have executed this well, such as Red Dead Redemption 2, but considering that BioWare and Ubisoft in particular hinge a lot of their games on these types of conversations, yet Guerrilla Games was able to do this on their second attempt, is truly shocking, and Ubisoft and BioWare will be held to a new standard as far as I'm concerned, based on the interactions shown in Horizon Forbidden West. One of the biggest issues for the game is that the developers attempted to create emotional choices that would allow the player to choose whether Aloy was logical, aggressive, or loving. Many felt that this was against the core cutscenes where Aloy acted in a specific way, but here thankfully the developers have limited these choices. The branching narrative options are still here, but most are for the players who want to dive deeper into the game's lore or specific characters. Often these do open up more narrative options and even unique interactions, as Aloy will address information she knows or has been exposed to when it comes up. The developers instead wanted Aloy to have a more specific personality here, and it works for the better. Aloy herself is often aggressive and focused, but still empathetic and caring. She doesn't care for politics and just wants to get the job done, but understands she can't just dismiss a culture's traditions. In fact, she interacts with a lot of opposing cultures during this adventure. For example, Aloy will actively kill people, but she's not a murderer. She'll always offer restraint, but understanding what needs to be done. Aloy shows over and over she holds her principles dearly and cares greatly for her friends, but will often go well beyond her limits even if help is available, even if she comes off as pretentious at times. However, given that she's the only one who can solve the issue of the world, given her genetic history and the importance that holds into accessing restricted machinery, it's not without merit. This doesn't mean that Aloy is painted as a person who can do anything. The developers often showcase her limitations due to physical trauma, with near-death situations, or in missions where she can push herself so hard but still fail in the process. She often has emotionally crippling moments and often questions her own actions. Each victory is made through hardship and determination because she worked for it, and not through inherited skills despite her legacy. She comes off as brash and often cynical, but Aloy really comes into her own here, rather than in Horizon Zero Dawn, where they tried to paint Aloy as this character you can shift and mold, where in reality she should be an established person. To me, the best example of doing this would still be Uncharted 4: A Thief's End, where Nathan Drake has multiple options in which he can interact with people, but he still has that set personality. He comes off as cocky, but he can also be direct and brash. The supporting cast plays a much bigger role this time around, where in the previous game Aloy would only be with them during certain major moments in the story and then move on. Here you build a crew through new and existing people. About 1/3 through the game, you'll get a base and you'll see these people start to learn about the old world, develop strong connections with each other, and interact similar to Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. This sense of camaraderie grows as Aloy starts to rely on them for help, as opposed to the beginning where she constantly tries to do everything herself. There's also a unique side mission for each of the characters that allow you to expand on their own personal story and build that relationship with Aloy. I did wish that you can call on them for aid at more original points within the game other than specific story missions, but I thought that it would have been too overpowered because these characters can die. But the AI, when it comes to interacting with Aloy and fighting alongside her, isn't that great. They spend more time handing Aloy ammo than actually fighting, and I found it perplexing that they don't hand Aloy actual healing items or, stuff I could use. They just hand you the specific type of ammo, and while sometimes it helps, I often would state, please give me health items. I need health. Horizon Forbidden West is a massive game with a lush and beautiful world that has a huge amount of environmental variety that really builds on Horizon Zero Dawn's landscapes. The game is based on areas such as Las Vegas and San Francisco, but to prevent artificially stretching the world, things are a lot more condensed. Guerrilla Games went above and beyond to create a world with deserts, forests, mountains, fields, and added to everything is an outstanding weather system along with a day and night cycle that constantly creates dynamic changes within each fight or interaction. Most importantly, it encourages that sense of discovery with towns, hidden areas, and small puzzle platforming sections that reward players with new gear and exotic items. As with the first game, there are plenty of fast travel points in the way of bonfires, completed rebel camps, and towns. For some reason, the developers decided to keep the same fast travel system from the first game, where you need a limited use pack in order to travel from one location to the next. These are inexpensive to purchase and make, but it's just so unnecessary. The first game did have an infinite use travel pack once you got to Meridian, but in this game I haven't located one, but considering again how inexpensive and easy it is to craft these things, it just seems so unnecessary. Just allow the player to fast travel from one location to the next. There doesn't seem to be any type of gameplay reason for this, so I hope in a new patch they'll remove this feature, but for now it just seems completely unnecessary. What is a huge improvement from the previous map is that the world feels alive and evolving. In the beginning you can see storms, the blight taking over, and the water getting more polluted, but as the adventure continues, these things are cleared with entire sectors of the map gaining new life.
I'm in Plainsong and it's amazing. It's just like you said, the fields are back in bloom.
The land gods
And we have you to
find
thank
the
for it.
fields again.
If you hadn't come along, the Utaro would still be starving, under siege by machines.
I'm just glad it worked out.
Yes,
Once again,
first Plainsong, next, the world.
Still need a signal for my focus.
The settlements have also seen a massive improvement from Zero Dawn. Towns are filled with people moving, interacting, talking, playing, and it all just feels so alive. This is present in Horizon Zero Dawn, but outside of Meridian, the other settlements were lackluster, but here every settlement feels like its own home for the people who live there. The Utaro, for example, live in lush plains, wearing clothes and armor made from plants since they're a vegetarian-based society, whereas the Tanakh are covered in tattoos that highlight their accomplishments and are largely a military-based people, each settled in different areas based on an ancient story. They're covered in animal parts, they have machine weapons everywhere, so it's definitely a opposite of the Utaro. Each clan has made a different region their own home, but all answer to the Tanakh, but have a unique way of how they live. To prevent the player from being overwhelmed with all this new information, the developers included not only optional narratives from significant characters, but side missions that deliver important lore with action. To encourage players to complete side missions, Guerrilla Games built on Horizon Zero Dawn's system, where if you did a large part of the optional content, more allies would come to aid the player in the final battle. Here, that's also present in each side mission, as Aloy not only gets special items for completing side missions, but will often gain new dialogue options in later missions, or even complete story requirements beforehand. This also includes side missions. If you complete a specific area before getting the mission, you'll automatically clear it and get rewarded, but you still have to interact with the quest giver.
I think I know what happened. A rockbreaker ambushed your crew, trapping them in a canyon. There were no survivors.
A rock? Keep your voice down, will you? The rest of the crew's already spooked. They're refusing to press on with the delve until they're assured a way out of here.
You lost half your crew and you're worried about the delve.
We gotta make their sacrifice worth something, right? And besides, now that you're here, maybe our sand-stranded days are over. Help me get that tunnel reopened, and I'll cut you in on the delver's fee. What do you say?
Well, Porgif, you're in luck. I already cleared the tunnel.
Fire and spit, you don't say. You didn't happen to find a lockbox while you were there, did you? It was hand-carved by my dear old ma. The second crew was supposed to bring the rest of the supplies and belongings, but such is the delver's life.
Here you go.
Spark in the dark. Is there nothing you can't do? Here, your fee as promised. Now that the threat's gone, I'll have the tunnel shored up and cleared out. Then I can send for another crew, get this expedition going proper-like. Onwards to the delve!
Aloy will often remind the player of a specific location where side missions may be available, or if the mission is inaccessible at the time, to remind the player she can do it now. Side missions don't only have you revisit in old areas, but often infuse new elements into them. The biggest is funneling players into lesser known areas around the map outside the main story. The side content will even go beyond that by introducing new unique areas or optional boss fights against deadly opponents. Even the repetitive missions often include distinctive challenges such as rebel bases being uniquely designed and lead into a massive battle that isn't part of the main story but does play a vital role in Aaron's narrative. Tall necks that allow the player to scan the area aren't just finding the specific area and climbing on top of them like in the first game, but instead the player must go through a different mission for each of the tall necks, allowing Aloy to find new ways to get on top of them or even knock them down. Much of the map is available to the player, but certain obstacles require specific tools. They are all unlocked through the main story, with the three most significant tools provided through the three-part story mission that the player can take part in any order. To ensure that the player isn't locked out of anything significant, many of these barriers simply unlock high-valued resources instead of entire dungeons and replenish over time. However, this does lead to a major issue with Horizon Forbidden West, and that's the massive grind. Horizon Forbidden West built significantly from the previous game in terms of weapons, armor, and upgrades. There is a massive selection of bows, crossbows, slingers, ammo types, and armor available to Aloy. Guerrilla really went above and beyond with the selection that it can be overwhelming or even annoying. Certain bows can be used with specific ammo types, and this can become annoying since you'll have to go into a menu to switch to a specific weapon to use that ammo needed for a certain situation. The quick select tool is helpful here, but seeing that there's a lot of options, it can lead to a lot of negative issues where you're trying to find that very specific ammo type to deliver a negative status effect and need to take advantage of these things in very hard difficulty. This extends to the upgrade system, which can give the player massive control over what they wish to improve. You have your pouches that require animal parts, which there are a lot more variety this time as opposed to the original game where I believe there were only foxes, turkeys, pigs, and rats. Here there are lizards and a lot more animals to the biomes, some unique to that specific environment. and your weapon and gear require very specific machine parts. Like the previous game, killing a target means a random selection of items to loot that can be used for weapons and crafting items, with the machines having unique parts that can only be obtained by breaking them off before they are destroyed. If you destroy them before breaking off the part, you don't get access to them. Fortunately, your focus does give you all the information you need, from machine weak points to scanning specific parts that you need, and you can tag the machine's part if you need real-time indication of where it is. The problem is that the scanning system isn't foolproof, because often it will remove the scan entirely, meaning that you have to keep scanning the enemy if you want to keep it visually appearing on your screen, which I think is very annoying and unnecessary. I had to constantly scan the same machine multiple times just to keep them highlighted. Get used to this, because you're going to have to kill a lot of machines and animals in order to upgrade Aloy's vast amount of gear. Like in the original game, Aloy must head into cauldrons to locate rare machine code for overriding machines. Unlike the previous game, the developers made these areas unique from one another, from puzzles to the final boss encounter against a powerful variant of the machine. Each cauldron serves like a dungeon with a final boss, but completing it doesn't mean you gain full access to overriding specific machines. Some are corrupted, and again, you need these parts from those machines to fix the corrupted code that adds to the massive grind. You're going to have to destroy a lot of machines for many reasons, and it can become tedious. The combat system does remain largely unchanged from the previous game. You have stealth and active combat that is centered around third-person shooting. The game encourages you to plan accordingly with traps, highlight paths, and execute your plan. Your focus can showcase the pathing of enemies, and you can place traps around the environment that deal heavy damage through elemental effects. Tall grass hides your position, and you can deal heavy damage with stealth strikes, and if you have access to the code of overriding machines when in stealth, you can override them and allow yourself access to that machine, either to ride, which there are a lot more machines to ride, or you can use them to fight on your side. There is an option to make them more aggressive that makes them a lot more formidable, but at the same time, the developers had made overriding machines a bigger part of the game. In fact, it's encouraged for you to override machines because Aloy can really take a hit. These machines can deal a lot of damage, so you're encouraged to override machines. Melee combat has been improved from the previous game, with more options available to the player. You have your standard heavy and light strikes along with combo attacks. It's effective and an improvement from the first game's basic system, but most of the time you're in third person, shooting arrows from a variety of bows and slingers available to Aloy. Each one has its own advantages and disadvantages, such as being quicker for shooting arrows, being slow but precise, and more. The issue is that it can be overwhelming with the number of choices available to the player, since there are subcategories such as certain bows only available to use specific elemental arrows and other major mechanics. Having to go through a menu to swap out bows is annoying, but unless you play on very hard, it's not mandatory, since the most basic impact arrows are effective enough. Having to select through all these different bows can lead to frustrating moments during intense battles, because everything is sandwiched together. The left stick that controls movement also serves as your weapon selector, and having to craft weapon ammo on the fly just becomes very annoying after a while, especially during the heat of battle. Armor variety has been dramatically increased to offer a mixed trapper, hunter, scavenger, and more options to the list that determine what playstyle you are more comfortable with. As with the weapons, the armor has specific advantages, and you can change from one another easily with upgrades available for each. You cannot just buy the armor, as most powerful options are only available through missions and trading parts with Longwood shards, the game's in-game currency. So more things to grind for, since this also applies to weapons. But unlike weapons, armor has cosmetic options available to the player in the way of dyes that are earned through collecting plants only found on cliffs. Aloy can also apply various face paints that offer no combat advantage, but it's significant to the game's lore, especially to the Nora and the Tanakh. You're going to face a lot of powerful machines and humans on this adventure. First, the humans have seen an improvement from the previous game. They can be manipulated easily still if you know what you're doing, but they have more combat animations and are effective fighters. A simple headshot doesn't mean they'll go down now. Humans can wear more powerful armor, will flank your position, ride machines into battle, shoot volley arrows, throw bombs in your last known location, and dodge melee attacks. You can easily kill the leader with stealth attacks, and were able to manipulate the AI easily once I realized how to break line of sight. The developers did improve the base system, but allow Aloy to retreat once she's killed the leader of a camp, so there's no need to locate every enemy in the base in order to clear it, which was an annoyance in the first game. The highlight of the franchise is still fighting robotic threats, and here they're just as much a thrill. Each machine has unique strengths, weaknesses, fighting patterns, and animations. The developers have increased the machine variety with distinct types this time around that Aloy would be unaware of due to some of them being region specific. You can still knock off parts and use the machine weapons against them, break exotic items off them, and even override them and ride them into combat, and Aloy has access to more options in terms of mounts, including a raptor and a boar. Unfortunately, you can only access one type at a time, and if that machine is destroyed, you have to go and override a brand new machine. Fortunately, you can also use the machine's specific animations to your advantage. For example, if you get a raptor, you can use the raptor's attacks against other machines, even call it into battle to fight alongside with you, which is a great feature. So, unlike the non-rideable mounts, these overrides are not permanent and they are limited based on a timer. So once they're done, they will attack you, and it can be frustrating when you have to deal with a very powerful machine after you override them. When everything comes together, Horizon Forbidden West has some terrific moments as you dodge incoming attacks and knock off robot parts, but mountain issues do break up the momentum. The sheer amount of weapons and status effects is overwhelming, especially when there's little reason why a certain bow can't use impact arrows but can only use fire arrows. Why not just allow the player to select what ammo types to use on that bow and offer increased benefits if they use a specific type of ammo? Breaking the momentum further is that Aloy can be easily knocked over. Granted, these are robotic creatures that tower over her, but after a certain point it becomes an insufferable chore every time Aloy is knocked to the floor, especially when in a corner where an enemy can just spam the same attacks. Despite the incredible animations, this has led to another problem where the attacks don't always connect. Occasionally arrows will go through enemies and the auto lock for melee attacks won't register, most likely due to the complicated movement system in the game. There were times when Aloy wouldn't move when dodging and I got stuck in the game's terrain on several occasions. There have been many people on social media citing that this game being unfinished, but that's not the case. There are bugs, like in any open world game, but not to the point that it would be considered broken. If you ever experienced games like Fallout 76, Battlefield 2042, or even Assassin's Creed Unity, you will definitely understand that this game is not nowhere on those levels of broken. Yeah, it has some occasional issues, and I did experience one crash during my 40 hours of play, but that's expected. Open world games are going to have problems, and again, it's not as problematic as when The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt launched. It has its fair share, but I mean, all things considered, Guerrilla did an outstanding job of polishing this game. Yeah, there are issues, but they're nowhere near the amount of problems that most open-world AAA games experience on release. In fact, I have to give it to Guerrilla. They actually took the time to ensure that this game was ready for release. It is a finished game. Swimming has been expanded on in Horizon Forbidden West, and it's hit or miss. On a visual and presentation side, it's amazing. The developers did an outstanding job of creating a lush underwater world that can feel frightening at times when hostile machines are around. Aloy cannot defend herself underwater and must rely on seaweed to hide, but the developers reduced the cone of vision on these enemies so you're not at a disadvantage, dramatically at least. On the negative side, swimming is extremely slow and can be difficult to move, especially when dashing twice in quick succession because it reduces your standard speed right after the second dash, which is incredibly annoying. This is due to the lifelike animations as Aloy travels through the water. Thankfully, these swimming sections are far between one another, and the game focuses more on exploration and resource gathering rather than stealth sections when underwater. Climbing has been altered to allow Aloy to scale mostly any surface, but can become frustrating as well. Aloy can climb only surfaces that are highlighted by a yellow marker, but cannot climb on everything, which can be annoying when you see a ledge that she can clearly leap onto, but the game simply says no. It definitely adds more mobility options, especially when combined with the grapple, which can launch Aloy into the air, but due to the increased mobility, it can lead to moments of frustration, with Aloy sometimes not grabbing a specific ledge or failing to make a jump. It's not on the same level of polish as Uncharted, Assassin's Creed, or even the original Horizon Zero Dawn in terms of stability. Horizon Zero Dawn's climbing system was basic, but at least it worked effectively. Here you have situations where Aloy should grab on a ledge, even highlighted by the game, only for her to drop straight down. The shield wing is a massively helpful tool that you get very early on in the game that allows you to glide down almost anywhere. It's very effective and it's such a helpful tool. It also can be used to kind of break the game because it boosts Aloy's jump by a little amount, which allows you to get into certain areas that you shouldn't be able to. Now, Aloy is a scavenger, and unfortunately that means gathering a large amount of raw resources. This was a huge complaint in the original game, as many players spent a lot of time gathering the most basic of items such as medical berries and wood. The developers attempted to combat this by offering a stash, a place where players can pick up an excess amount of items that will be placed into a box that you can access from any safe area. This makes replenishing items such as berries and wood much easier, with the player eventually gaining access to a secondary berry satchel later on in the game that stores another set of berries. The developers also removed the berry meter and instead have a numbered berry option which depletes depending on how much damage needs recovering. This makes it a lot easier to gather the amount of items you need in order to fill that recovery meter instead of actually having that RNG system where sometimes you would get a large amount and sometimes you wouldn't. The best way to make gathering items more efficient would have been giving the player the option to turn off the animation to collect items and just collect the items while you move. Far Cry Primal provided this option since the player was all about collecting raw materials, and something like that would have been ideal here, or even the auto pickup option that's in The Last of Us Part 2. Hopefully the developers will add this in a patch later, but considering that this is a hallmark within the Horizon franchise, I don't think it's going away. But either add in the ability to remove the animation together or auto pick up the items would have been a fantastic addition, and again, I hope they add it later on. You're probably wondering why not just give Aloy access to 100% of all the supplies you gather. Well, this is for balancing purposes. Aloy must craft ammo on the fly, and if she has access to every specific part available to her, she can just craft the most powerful ammo types at any time. Just keep crafting armor-piercing precision arrows or explosive javelins and you'll be able to take down anything. So this is for the sake of balancing. And added to the crafting system are workbenches. These are used in order to create special potions and traps, which can be annoying because there's no way to organize it in the hotbar, which I wish there was an option. As far as I can tell, there isn't any, but there are various different healing items, traps, and other options that are available similar to the first game, but much more expanded on, with advanced traps available to Aloy that require exotic materials. Now, food is another new addition to the game that offers Aloy new benefits in order to expand on her already existing skills. You have to hunt down these rare meats and items in order to get these food benefits that only last for so long and also provide new healing options. Now, everything you do does give you experience, and the leveling system is traditional. Players can invest in Warrior for melee, Trapper, Hunter for range, Survivor for gathering items, and Infiltrator for sneaking, along with Machine Master for mountain combat. Each one has distinct advantages, with the newest addition being Valor Surges. Each tree has 2 that can be upgraded 3 times that provide unique advantages such as cloaking, increased melee damage, and more. You can alter between any of them without losing any of the charge if you've filled up your meter, and serve as a great last resort technique with really cool animations distinct to that specific Valor Surge. As you gain levels, you'll get to invest into a variety of skills and talents. The level cap is only set at 50 though. Once you reach this level, you still get skill points, but at a hidden rate that's not revealed to the player, which is strange. Why not just balance the game so when you reach level 50, you'll have all the skill points in order to invest into everything? I'm not really sure about that. I think it's because they're possibly going to add more content in the game, but it's just really strange. The game generally doesn't level gate any content, and you can go almost anywhere, but there are specific sections that you can't go because of story requirements, such as a facility that was owned by Ted Faro, and there's a specific island on San Francisco where you can't get to for story purposes. I was very confused by this, but once I got further into the story, it made sense. So it's a little weird, but at the same time, I was purposely trying to 100% everything in the game, so if you just go through the story content, it's likely you won't even notice this, so I was really trying to break the game. Now I'm going to go into a bit of minor spoilers because I feel like this needs to be addressed because it's such a major win. There is a final boss fight. I know that seems like such a trivial thing because technically Horizon Zero Dawn did have a final boss fight, but it was such an underwhelming final boss. It was basically against, you know, a more powerful Deathbringer. But in this game, there is an actual unique final boss fight. There are unique boss fights throughout the game, but I have to give credit where credit is due, where boss fights are becoming increasingly more rare. I love it when developers, especially within the AAA market, actually go out of their way to include them, and thank you, Guerrilla, for including an actual unique final boss fight. It was one of my biggest complaints about the original game, and they fixed it here, and thank you for that. Now, I waited until the end to discuss this because I felt it was painfully obvious, but this game is absolutely beautiful. The reason I'm bringing this up is because on Twitter, it was a minefield with people just comparing every little minute aspect of this game with other titles, and I felt like it was unwarranted, especially between Xbox fanboys and PlayStation fanboys. It's just, I'm not taking sides on this, but the game is beautiful. Yes, the PS5 version is the superior version. Obviously, it has better frame rate, and it has the choice between frame rate or resolution. I prefer performance because I like smoother frame rate, but it looks good and plays wonderfully regardless of what choice you choose. And the PS4 version, yes, it has a lower frame rate, but it's still absolutely gorgeous. I do think God of War looks better, but that's because that's a semi-open world game, so it doesn't have to deal with as many factors as Horizon Forbidden West, but it is an absolutely beautiful game. In terms of music, I feel like Horizon Zero Dawn and Forbidden West is underappreciated in their musical score. They have some of the best combat music I've heard in the Sony library of soundtracks. Yes, I do think that Halo has a better combat soundtrack, heck, most RPGs do, but the soundtrack in this game is absolutely brilliant, and I recommend that you listen to it on YouTube. It's all over YouTube. I'm not going to put it here in its raw form because I'm pretty sure Sony will copyright strike me. They've done that before, but nevertheless, it has an incredible soundtrack, and the visual presentation is staggering. I'm really frustrated with the amount of fanboys just come and hate on these games because they're dedicated to a specific plastic box. You're free to like whatever you want. This game is gorgeous. Halo Infinite is gorgeous. The Last of Us Part 2 is gorgeous, even though I wasn't a fan of that game. It is a incredibly looking game. Yeah, I would even say that The Last of Us Part 2 actually looks better than Horizon Forbidden West. But this game is beautiful to look at. I mean, just look at this. Horizon Forbidden West is a masterpiece in open-world game design and story. The intricate narrative constantly delivers new twists and emotionally charged moments as you attempt to save the world once again. The combat is engaging but messy due to the oversaturation of weapon variety and status effects that often hamper the synergy between speed and selection. Guerrilla Games really went out of their way to ensure that Horizon Forbidden West shows that it's pushing new standards that other game developers have seemed to be lacking in, especially in animation and natural conversations, along with open world design and world building. Horizon Forbidden West is a monumental, exceptional experience that goes beyond what the first game established, and something I highly recommend to anyone who loved the first game. And it is one of my favorite games of this year so far, and easily a contender for Game of the Year. Thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. Check out my no commentary walkthrough. It's listed below for Horizon Zero Dawn, for the Frozen Wilds expansion, and for Forbidden West. Also, tell me what you think about Horizon Forbidden West, what you agree, disagree with in my review, if you liked it, you hated it. I like hearing people's opinions. And yeah, till next time, thanks for joining me. Stay awesome, everyone.
Orb races. Yeah, around pylons of fire. All things considered, I'm a lucky man. I'm doing what I love. Not everyone gets to do that. If we can get more embers, the night sky is going to be the best show in the world. I've been talking since we launched. Done now. Promise. Just let me know when you'd like me to take over. I wonder if... No, there has to be a weight limit. Take to the skies and see the world from a whole new perspective in my amazing, elevating orb. Improved for your comfort and safety.